All right, let's jump right into this. Today, we're tearing into a deeply chilling account straight from the popular Cooney Monday archives. In this explainer, we aren't just telling you a spooky ghost story. No, we're actually going to map out the precise anatomy of a haunting. We're looking at the incredibly tragic case of Advait and Sanvi. They were a couple who traveled out to the breathtaking hills of Cherrapunji for their dream destination wedding, only to basically walk headfirst into an absolute nightmare. So we're going to trace exactly how this picture-perfect romance was systematically torn apart by an ancient, vengeful curse.
I won't leave you alive. That grim, deeply terrifying promise right there, that's the anchor for our entire analysis today. I mean, it's the ultimate threat, and it's delivered in just the most isolating way imaginable. Picture this, hearing those exact words whispered directly into your ear when you're literally on your way to what's supposed to be the happiest day of your life. It completely sets the stage for the absolute dread we're about to unpack.
Okay, let's dive into phase 1 here, the beginning of this cursed journey. Advait and Sanvi had been together for 4 years and were super thrilled to finally tie the knot. They fly into Guwahati and catch a bus to Cherrapunji. Honestly, on paper, it sounds like the perfect romantic getaway. But as you probably know from studying these paranormal accounts, the environment usually sets the psychological stage for all the horror that's about to follow.
And the timing here is absolutely crucial. It's June. The monsoon rains are just pouring down, cloaking Cherrapunji in this incredibly beautiful, but let's be real, super gloomy and isolated atmosphere. Right out of the gate on that bus ride, something feels terribly off. Sanvi realizes they aren't just alone with the driver. There's a woman sitting way in the back seat, completely veiled. Every single time Sanvi glances back, this mysterious woman is just muttering these strange mantras and flashing Sanvi this deeply unsettling, horrifying smile. Now, what's genuinely fascinating here is the structured framework behind the terror. We call it the anatomy of a haunting. You see, entities in these accounts rarely just jump straight to lethal force. They are methodical. They escalate. They kick things off with step 1, psychological terror, really breaking down the victim's mind. Then they bump it up to step 2, physical harm. And finally, the climax, step 3, lethal force. Seriously, keep this playbook in mind as we track Sanvi's ordeal. That brings us right into phase 2, omens and ignored warnings. Pretty much every tragic horror account has this pivotal closing window of time where the victims actually could have turned back. Tragically, this phase is always defined by fatal miscommunications and massive glaring red flags that just get rationalized away. So, the real escalation kicks off at a roadside dhaba. The bus pulls over for some tea and snacks. Advait hops off, leaving a sleeping Sanvi behind. Well, when she wakes up, the horror isn't sitting in the backseat anymore. The veiled woman is right next to her, and her face, it's half mutilated. The entity violently grabs Sanvi's hand. Sanvi tries to scream her lungs out, but it's literally as if her voice has been stolen from her throat. When Advait finally gets back, the woman is magically in her original seat, and Sanvi is just left there gasping, trying to convince herself it was merely a bad dream. Desperate to calm her nerves after that dhaba stop, Sanvi looks away, pops in her earphones, and cranks up her favorite songs, trying to completely block out the world. But the entity invades that safe space too. Cutting right through the music in her earphones, a horrific voice whispers that chilling promise, "I won't leave you alive." Sanvi lets out this absolute blood-curdling scream. The sheer panic completely distracts the driver, and boom, the bus crashes straight into a tree. Thankfully, nobody gets hurt, but when they look around the closed bus, the mysterious woman has vanished into thin air. Now here is the ultimate giant red flag. After the crash, Sanvi steps out into the rain and spots the woman standing right on the edge of a nearby cliff, only now she's dressed in a full bridal outfit. Then, horrifyingly, the woman's neck violently snaps. It spins entirely backwards, so she's staring directly at Sanvi with these dead eyes right before throwing herself off the cliff. Sanvi is, understandably, hysterical, but let's look at Advait's reality. He didn't see any of it. Plus, the resort car literally just pulled up to get them. So he dismisses her trauma completely. He chalks the whole thing up to pre-wedding jitters and stress. And tragically, they agree to just move on. And that specific rationalization, it kicks the door wide open for phase 3, the corrupted Mehdi ceremony. We're at the resort now, just 2 days out from the wedding. The psychological terror has perfectly isolated Sanvi. So the entity moves up to step 2 of our framework, physical harm. A Mehdi ceremony is supposed to be super joyous, right? Singing, dancing, surrounded by family. But the second the paste touches Sanvi's hands, she feels this agonizing, searing burn. We're talking deep, bloody wounds forming right underneath the mehedi. She tries to yank her hand back, but the woman applying it has this unnatural, vice-like grip. When Sanvi finally looks up at her face, her blood absolutely runs cold. It's her, the exact same mutilated woman from the bus. The shock hits her so hard that Sanvi just collapses, fainting right there in front of all our guests. And this brilliantly illustrates the horrific, quiet isolation of a haunting victim. Sanvi wakes up, looks down at her hands, and sees real, physical, bleeding wounds. She is beyond terrified. She knows without a doubt this entity is actively trying to stop the wedding. But what does Advait do? Once again, he tries to comfort her by insisting it's nothing more than a severe chemical allergy to the paste. Just a bad batch of mehendi, medicine will fix it. Advait's rigid logic is completely blinding him to the very real supernatural threat, which leaves Sanvi utterly alone in her terror. Not wanting to ruin the big event for everyone, she makes the tragic choice to stay silent. Which means we have arrived at Phase 4, the climax. The warnings were ignored. The physical attacks were rationalized away. The actual wedding day is here. And this haunting shifts right into its final, most devastating stage. Lethal force at the mandap. Picture the scene for a second. They are in this massive banquet hall at the resort. Giant glass windows are looking out into the heavy, rainy, pitch-black darkness of Cherrapunji. The couple is sitting at the mandap, the traditional wedding altar. Out of nowhere, the power cuts out. The entire hall is plunged into total darkness. Literally, the only source of light left in the room is the flickering, dancing flames of the sacred fire, the Havankund. So in that dim, super eerie light, they try to continue the ritual. But Sanvi glances over and her worst nightmare is sitting right there. Directly behind Advait is the entity, dressed in that blood-red bridal outfit. She's tightly holding onto Advait's hand. The scariest part? Advait has absolutely no idea she's even there. But then the priest asks Advait to apply the sindoor, the red vermilion powder, to Sanvi's forehead. Advait tries, but suddenly realizes he physically cannot lift his arm. This immense, unseen force is restraining him completely. At that moment, the entity drops all the deception. One by one, every single massive glass window in that banquet hall violently shatters. The entire wedding party screams in pure horror as Advait's body starts convulsing, almost like he's having a severe seizure. And the ghost finally manifests for everyone to see. Her face is fully mutilated, covered in ghastly open wounds, and her eyes are glowing this terrifying bright blood red. The execution here is instantaneous. It's brutal. Right in front of the screaming family, the ghostly bride grabs Advait's head. She violently twists it, instantly snapping his neck and stopping his breath right at the altar. But she isn't done. She immediately lunges for Sanvi, grabs her by the throat, lifts her off the floor, and throws herself and Sanvi straight out of those shattered windows, plummeting down into the pitch-black ravine outside. In seconds, a dream destination wedding transforms into a site of absolute massacre. Phase 5, the origin. To truly grasp a tragedy of this magnitude, we have to look past the event itself and dig into the history. Why did this happen? Why target this specific couple? Well, the local lore actually provides a crucial, really somber epilogue that reveals the dark folklore powering this brutal curse. An old local villager eventually explained the dark history of that land to the grieving families. Long before any resort was built there, a young local girl lived on that exact slope. On the day of her wedding, her new husband murdered her, shoving her down that very same ravine. According to the lore, her enraged, betrayed spirit became permanently bound to the slope. Her curse is incredibly simple and absolute. She will never, ever allow a marriage to take place on her land. If anyone makes it as far as the mandap, she takes their life. Because Advait and Sanji's wedding was the very first one hosted at this shiny new resort, the management had completely ignored all the local warnings. So the really crucial takeaway here is how flawlessly this timeline maps on to the entity's goal. Just look at the grim efficiency of it all. This wasn't random. She targeted the bride psychologically on the bus on day 1. She physically corrupted the pre-wedding rituals at the Mendi on day 3. And she executed lethal force on day 4 at the precise second the marriage was being finalized. And that brings us to the final, definitely the most unsettling detail of this whole tragedy. 2 weeks after that horrific night, search parties finally recovered Sanvi's lifeless body deep in the jungle at the bottom of the ravine. But here's the thing. It wasn't the fall that killed her. She was found strangled to death. And the murder weapon? It was her own Mangosutra. The sacred necklace, the ultimate symbol meant to bind a couple for eternity, was literally twisted into the instrument of her doom. It really leaves us with a chilling question. When an ancient curse is rooted in that level of profound betrayal, can any amount of modern logic ever truly protect you? Thanks for hanging out with me as we unpacked this incredible explainer. Catch you next time.